Hey, good morning, everybody. Oh, Saturday morning, just got cleaned up. As I mentioned, I was heading to go get my daughter's car today. But first, always first, some coffee. The Some of you might be wondering, friends and family even, why I chose to call this channel Bologna Streams. Actually, my life has been full of baloney, for the cliche, if you will. And there's going to be a lot of opinions about bologna. I mean, you like it, you don't like it, it's bad for you. It's actually funny when I started thinking about doing this and just kind of talking. We used to call blogging, and I used to do that professionally, even as a writer and a social media manager, long ago before things have exploded the way they have. And I actually debated about putting these chats out there, these things, these sessions, episodes, whatever, because I knew that there were going to be a lot of people that had opinions, and I just didn't know if I wanted to hear it all, to be honest. But in the end, I'm a teacher, a trainer, professor, and I love talking to folks and telling stories and doing that kind of stuff. And so I said, well, if nothing else, it's cathartic for me. So even if you don't get anything out of this, it helps me. There are good days and bad days, but what I thought I'd focus on today, and this is where the opinions come in, is really talk about bologna. Where does that fit? Which I still can't spell without singing it. I still have to say Bologna. My bologna has a first name. It's Oscar. So every time I have to type it or spell it, I have to sing it in that way. So it's kind of funny. But bologna is actually, I love to cook, and food is a big part of my life. I'm a big guy, and there'll be conversations about that, I'm sure. But bologna is actually one of the first things I learned to cook. I grew up in far west Texas, where the Rockies kind of come down into Texas. It's the desert part of Texas. When you think about Texas, if you're not from around here, Texas is actually very large, and I grew up in the desert, and a really beautiful place. And but anyways, we had bologna, and I'm not even sure what kind of bologna it was, but I know that when I got home from school, I would eat bologna. And it's kind of funny. Every culture, I've traveled quite a bit. Every culture has their own version of bologna. Pate, for example, is like liver bologna. It's all the parts and pieces of things when you really when you're processing, you had to eat everything to stay fed. We don't have to do that anymore, but those foods have remained. So sausages and bologna. Anyway, so we had bologna. And I'd come home from school, and my mom had a griddle, the flat on the stove all the time, and I liked to griddle bologna or fried bologna, and on a sandwich or whatever. But one of my first memories is that this is back when kids played outside. Excuse me. And so the funny thing is that. I was cooking some bologna, and you have to deal with the bologna hump. If you've never cooked bologna, what happens is it fills with air and hump, and you have to cut it to get it to lay flat again. But but I was cooking bologna on the griddle, and the phone rang, and it was my friends calling to say we were playing football or something down the street, and I was probably 8, something like that, 10, somewhere in there. And so I hang up the phone, and I go running out, and I play football or whatever we were doing that day. And my mom gets home from work that night, and man, she's upset. She whistles. She used to whistle in the neighborhood to kind of tell us, to come home, and we'd come home. She got home from work, and that bologna, I'd left the bologna on low, luckily enough, and the house was kind of full of smoke. But that big piece of bologna had shrank and burned to the griddle till it was about that big around. And that was one of my first cooking episodes. And I had to clean that griddle and scrape all that off. But I never forget the look of that shriveled bologna. And I just thought, oh, how sad. That bologna's so sad. Oh, man. But, oh, goodness. Oh, but, bologna's kind of been around in my life for a long time. It's I went to a home and school, and they would prep sack lunches for us for games, football games, basketball games, sports events, and we would, because we lived there, so they made all our food, everything, and I'll never forget after football games. We would get our sack lunches, which was always a sandwich, chips, a piece of fruit, usually a candy of some kind, and a soda. And but after a football game, we got 2 sandwiches late at night on a Friday night, which was always great. And my favorite was bologna. Yeah, you knew where I was headed, right? And this will gross some of you out, but it was white bread, and it was bologna and cheese with mayonnaise, and there was mayonnaise in between the cheese, and it was American cheese, I'm sure, economy cheese, if you will. And but they would always make the sack lunches the night before, and they'd put them in the walk-in, and they were literally in sacks, and white sacks, and they would compress them all together. And so because they'd been in a walk-in or in the refrigerator overnight, they would get compressed, and they would actually change flavor a little bit, the mayonnaise and I know some of you are like, oh yeah, but that was my favorite sandwich. We'd get that on usually on a Friday night, and it was like, oh, this, for me, I mean, we all have our things that we like, but that was one of my favorite things. So to this day, I don't do it very often, but there are times that I'll make a bologna and cheese sandwich with mayonnaise, and I'll wrap it in paper, and then I'll set it in the refrigerator under a gallon of milk, and I'll compress it down, and I get a semblance of that flavor. It's not the same bologna, it's not the same cheese as it was in high school, but it's close. So, anyways, I don't know. It's kind of funny. Like I said, kind of at the video, we always, I wondered how much would I talk about, how deep would I get about some of this stuff and people's thoughts on bologna, and I'm sure there's lots of them. But we all have those crazy things that we like, that we grew up with, that, make a difference, that we remember. And it just so happens bologna is one of mine, out of many, many things. And so the bologna strings, if you've never had bologna, or I'm sure you've seen it even somewhere, is that there's a red, when you pull a piece of bologna out of the package, there's usually a red casing. And I'm sure there was a more natural casing in the past, and now it's plastic. But it's red. And my wife likes bologna too, and we still eat it. And you pull that red bologna string off, that ring off the bologna before you put it on your sandwich or griddle, whatever it may be. So it's, there's just a lot of little things like that that we remember. What are some of the things that bring you back? I mean, sometimes it smells, and sometimes it's, fragrances of things, and things your mom or your grandmother cooked, or your dad, or whoever that might be. And one of mine happens to be bologna. So anyways, have a great day, and I appreciate you. May your day be full of wonder and a little bit of cheese. And I'll see you. Thanks.